What's up guys, Lifting here. Flameblast's top damage was buffed in 3.6 together with its damage effectiveness. And so I thought, together with all the new additions such as Infused Channeling, Malevolence and some of the skill tree changes, that it would be interesting to test out as a skill, focusing on Ignites as we did it back in the day. This league I decided to risk it and go Flameblast Ignite as my league starter in 3.6, and much to my liking it actually turned out pretty damn well, especially considering the budget it was able to perform at. As a matter of fact, I was effortlessly clearing red tier maps with gear worth less than 25 chaos orbs. I also want to point out that the gameplay you're watching now is all being done on a 5 link, with some of the gems not fully leveled, and I have tons of improvements I could make to my rare gear and potentially gain a huge amount of additional damage. But I thought it'd be interesting for you guys to see how the build performs on a relatively shitty but approachable gear level. A big part of what makes this setup possible, or at least feel so good on very constricted budget, has to do with the recent ascendancy changes too. In this case, the trickster rework. I chose the trickster due to its powerful buffs to damage over time, but also because I was curious about the new type of defensive mechanic that was added to it, namely the ghost shrouds. Via ghost stains, the keystone, you can now once every second gain a ghost shroud, capping out at 3 total. When you hit, you lose 1 charge, but you recover 5% of your total evasion rating as energy shield, meaning the more evasion you have, the more energy shield you're going to get back, allowing us to effectively scale the build in a hybrid-like fashion between energy shield and evasion. By itself, that can be pretty powerful. But what I really like about this mechanic is that it allows us to run Mind Over Matter together with Eldritch Battery and easily be able to sustain Energy Shield, even in encounters where you take massive amounts of damage, something that in the past could make sustaining your Energy Shield turn out to be a big challenge for this type of setup. And the way I've set it up is that by utilizing Eldritch Battery, this removes Energy Shield as a health source and instead turns it into a mana resource type of mechanic. This means we get the freedom to reserve our entire mana pool with various auras and utilities and still run Mind Over Matter at full effectiveness on the Energy Shield, thus potentially gaining a big advantage both defensively and offensively. And it of course allows us to fuel the cost of the spells that we cast on the Energy Shield too. So via Ghost Stains we gain those shrouds that allows us to recover Energy Shield based on the total amount of evasion we have. To further empower this mechanic, we also pick up Escape Artist, the other Ascendancy keystone. This first of all makes it so that for each Ghost Shroud active, we gain 12% attack and cast speed. If you include the minor Ascendancy points leading up to Ghost Stains and Escape Artist, that means that by going out through this range, we gain up to 44% increased cast speed when at maximum charges. This is hugely beneficial as it allows us to charge Flameblast much faster in those situations where it becomes necessary. On top of that, we also become immune to stuns and gain 20% chance to dodge spell hits as long as we have Energy Shield or any Ghost Shroud active. The stun immunity is especially welcomed as it means we won't have to use specific gear to overcome the issue of getting stunned, and we can instead focus on getting more damage or defense. The main reason, however, that I decided on Escape Artist is that you gain 5 evasion rating per 1 maximum energy shield on your helmet and 1 to maximum energy shield per 6 evasion rating on your body armor. The amazing part about that is that it effectively gives us a method to reach high enough evasion rating via a high energy shield helmet to provide enough energy shield recovery when we lose a Ghost Shroud to efficiently sustain the energy shield pool, while at the same time allowing us to reach enough evasion without having to actually use evasion based gear and instead just rely on ES gear to scale a high enough energy shield pool to use as fuel for Mind Over Matter, all via a single well-rolled helmet. Also, due to the +1 to maximum energy shield per 6 evasion on body armor, we can effectively use a hybrid energy shield and evasion based chest to gain a ton of energy shield. In our case, that means we'll be using the Carcass Jack armor as it provides both energy shield, so we can scale that directly, but it also has high evasion. This combination of the two at my current level nets approximately 1000 energy shield just by itself, and lends total evasion for us to scale so we can effectively recover energy shield when we get hit and lose a Ghost Shroud. So with these new changes to the Trickster, we create a condition where we can set up a very powerful but cheap defense to utilize. Besides that, the Trickster's Patient Reaper and the recovery it provides on kill for energy shield and life is of course very useful too, not to mention the extra damage over time that it and the prolonged pain keystone provide is of course very powerful as DPS increase. So yeah, that was a long speech about the Trickster, but as you can see it is a rather intricate and, in my opinion, pretty awesome and very well designed mechanic that really opens up for different ways of building a solid defense, while still also providing significant damage buffs. So let's talk about Flameblast and Ignites. Flameblast, first of all, is an AoE based channeling fire spell. You can channel it up to 10 charges and you gain 110% more spell damage, 90% more damage with ailments, and 5% chance to ignite per stage channeled. By increasing the cast speed, we can channel it faster. Ignite is the status ailment fire damage can apply, similar to how lightning damage can apply shock. To have fire damage apply an Ignite status ailment, it either needs to crits or use various methods of scaling the chance to ignite, and it is the latter that we are going for in this build. Via Breath of Flames, Holy Dominion, the Combustion Support Gem, the Flammability Curse, and the implicit 5% chance to ignite per channeled stage, we reach 99% chance to ignite on a stage 1 Flame Blast. The way we scale ignite damage is first of all via raw flat fire damage and various modifiers that modify this. In regards to the skill tree, for instance, that means that increased fire, burn, elemental damage over time, and in our case also minion damage due to spiritual aid, all work as effective ways of scaling the damage. The burn damage that the Ignite applies is equal to 40% of the base fire damage of the hit per second for 4 seconds. That means over a 4 seconds full duration, the target will take 160% of the base damage dealt of the initial hit. To make the Ignite effect spread to other enemies, we incorporate the Ignite Proliferation Support Gem. The way it works is that any Ignite applied by us will spread to nearby enemies in a certain sized radius, depending on how it's scaled. Basically, the bigger radius, the larger area you can cover in Ignites, and we can scale that via AoE modifiers such as Amplify and Arcane Expanse, or via the Carcass Jack that we have equipped. Unfortunately, AoE modifiers does not directly scale the Ignite damage, but it is in my opinion a worthy trade-off to get better clear speed, and it isn't like it's wasted anyway because it will scale the upfront damage of Flameblast too. With the build probably set up, as in not using the budget gear I'm showcasing in this video, but still without any crazy expensive stuff, and with its relevant buffs, we're able to achieve over 1.2 million Ignite DPS, and with it potentially even going higher. Right now, with the current gear that I'm wearing in this video, it's not even close to that potential. It's actually closer to dealing half or even less than what it can achieve. So keep that in mind. The items I recommend for this build is a Martyr of Innocence staff due to the vast amount of flat fire damage it provides to spells, allowing us to scale some big ignites. A Carcass Jack, as I mentioned earlier, due to the hybrid evasion energy shield it provides and AoE scaling. An Impresence Amulet, which allows us to run Flammability with Blasphemy without adding an additional mana cost reservation. A Cinder Swallow Flask, which provides even more life and energy shield recovery on kill and increasing the damage ignited enemies receive. Besides that, it is of course a Silver Flask and will thus grant more cast speed for faster Flame Blast channeling. Oh, and it is the one that also gives you that special Ignite effect visually when it's activated. I also use the Malachai's Mark gloves to generate Frenzy and Endurance charges for the build. These can feel a bit unreliable in the beginning, but once you start clearing maps at a fast rate, they sustain rather effectively, and on top of that also grants energy shield on kill, again making it easy to sustain energy shield in combat, when Mind Over Matter otherwise drains it as you take damage. But you can go for something else here. You could use gloves with minion damage on them, for instance, to scale the damage more effectively. Then if you really want to add more damage on top of it, and if you don't mind spending the currency, the new Bottled Faith Sulfur Flask is a great choice too, making enemies take 10% increased damage while on consecrated ground, and of course providing the implicit 40% increased damage while Flask is active. This actually turns out to be a rather significant buff. Finally, there's also some cool stuff you can do with a Watcher's Eye, such as the damaging ailments you inflict deal damage up to 15% faster while affected by malevolence. This is a very powerful DPS increase that I have not calculated into the total amount of damage I said we could reach before. But basically it allows you to deal the same amount of ignite damage in a shorter amount of time, drastically increasing your DPS. And then on top of that, since we're using Discipline and Clarity, you can of course get a relevant affix for either of those on the Watcher's Eye too, if you can find one or afford it. So about skill gems, I'm going to go over these quickly as they don't require that much explanation, but there's still a few setups worth mentioning. Together with Flameblast, I also use a spell totem linked with Scorching Ray. The primary use of that is to reduce the enemy's fire resistance, making the enemy take additional fire damage from our Flameblast and Ignites. But since this is a fire-based spell, it also greatly scales with the entire setup, and it by itself also reaches some great damage, close to 550, 600,000 or so. However, it gets destroyed rather easily and works best for single boss encounters in my opinion. For auras, I use Discipline to increase our energy shield pool and thus give Mind Over Matter more to work with. I use Malevolence to scale the damage of the Ignites and Scorching Ray, and I use a low level Clarity. However, the only reason for that is if we were to get a Watcher's Eye with a favorable affix relatable to Clarity, then you could utilize that and gain some kind of extra benefit. At the moment, since I have no Watcher's Eye, it does nothing. And while this isn't an aura, I also use the War Banner, as this, when placed at full charges, grants a big damage buff we can use to scale big Ignites. I only use this for boss encounters though. To be honest, I actually kind of forget about it rather often. A final thing to note about skill gems here is that we are using the Infused Channeling Support Gem, which grants a potentially huge damage buff for our Flameblast. However, in order to properly utilize this, you need to be channeling for at least 0.6 seconds if the gem is at 20 quality to activate the buff, which then goes on to last for 8 seconds. Once you get the build up and running, this is something you're only going to utilize against very tanky targets, as you otherwise normally one-tap the enemies and you rarely stand still to charge it for 0.6 seconds. So just keep that in mind. You don't really benefit fully from it when you're just running around and killing easy map monsters, but you gain a huge advantage when you're up against something tanky. If you decide on trying a build such as this, I recommend you level with Freezing Pulse or whatever your favorite spell is until level 28. From here you can start using Flameblast. However, it won't feel that good until you get a proper chance to ignite and some area of effect scaling to proliferate the ignites properly. So don't feel forced to use it at level 28, just go with whatever you want for as long as you can until you start to enjoy using Flameblast. I also highly recommend you get Escape Artist unlocked as fast as possible, because the cast speed is a huge bonus, especially in the beginning for this type of build. Until you do that, I'd recommend you use faster casting in your setup for Flameblast, as it otherwise just feels too damn slow to charge up. Getting yourself a cheap 5-link staff early on too can make a big difference. And that's it. Flameblast Ignites are back on the menu and it feels pretty good. This was a proof of concept video. There are 2 Path of Building pastebins in the description. One of them is for the character you see from the gameplay, and the other is a more optimized version with a higher budget requirement. But still nothing too crazy. This build really is rather budgety, even for the high damage version. As always, a big thanks to my patrons for your support. Visit me on Twitch if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them for you if I can. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And bros, do you even nerd?